Okay, so in this video what we're going to look at is we're going to look at finding second angles for solutions. I'm going to do it both in degrees and then radians. I'm going to do the calculator part once or twice, and then I'm just going to assume that you know how to use your calculator in radian mode. So right now my calculator is in degree mode, right? If I click on mode, right, I am in degree. Okay, you would go back in here to change it to radians. So let's first look at how we would solve this first equation in degrees for x between 0 and 360. So we have sine of x equals 0.9063, and sine is positive in quadrants 1 and 2, and so we expect to have answers in quadrants 1 and 2. So let's go ahead and figure out what inverse sine is, right? So in order to solve this equation, x is equal to inverse sine of 0.9063. And so that's what I'm going to type into my calculator, is inverse sine of 0.9063. Okay? And so rounded to the nearest degree, x is equal to 65 degrees, right? And I'm going to draw a picture here. And we know that this is 65, and that's one of our answers, but we know that there's also another answer here in quadrant 2 that also has a sine equal to 0.9063. So how do we get the second answer? Well, isn't that 180 minus 65? So 180 minus 65 is equal to 115. So that's our second solution. So our other answer is 115. So x is equal to 65 degrees or 115 degrees. Now, let's do this in radians. I'm going to do that in a different color here. And basically it's the same thing, right? My x is equal to inverse sine of 0.9063. So what I need to do first is I need to change my calculator into radian mode. And now it's in radians, and so I put there. And then I do exactly what I did before. I do inverse sine of 0.9063. And that gives me that x is equal to 1.13. I'm going to round to one decimal place for my radians. Well, that's in quadrant 1, right? Because this is 0, this is pi over 2, which is a little bit more than 1.5, right? And so this is my 1.13. Well, how do I get my second answer in quadrant 2? Well, look at what we did before. We did pi minus the angle that we found, right? Our reference angle is right here. But what is 180 in radians? That's just pi, right? So to find the second angle, it's pi minus 1.13. I just punch that into my calculator, and I get 2.012. So x is equal to 1.13, or 2.01 radians. And I don't put RAD with it. I just assume that since I don't have degrees, those are radians. And so that's how you basically find second angles. You do exactly what you did before with degrees, except that now instead of 180 you use pi, and for 360 you use 2 pi. But I'm going to go through now, and I'm going to assume that you know how to use your calculator and change all the different modes. So let me minimize that and make my window a little bit bigger. And let's go on and do some more problems. Okay? Alright, in degrees, I want to find all solutions for sine x equal to negative 0.3420. Well, sine is negatives in quadrants 3 and 4, so that's where I'm going to assume my answer is, right? I have one here and one here. So if I have x is equal to inverse sine of negative 0.3420, my calculator gives me negative 20. But that doesn't satisfy this condition that my answer has to be between 0 and 360. So negative 20 is down there. So the first thing that I need to do is to find my positive coterminal angle. And so I add 360 to my negative 20. So I have I add 360, I think that's what I said, to my negative 20 that I have, and that's 340. Right, so that's 340 degrees. Well, how do I get this one? Isn't that 180 minus a negative 20, right? Which is the same thing as 180 plus 20, which is 200. So my x is equal to 200 or 340. Okay. Alright, moving on. Let's do this in radians. So I type this into my calculator. I type in inverse sine of negative 0.3420 when I'm in radian mode, and I get negative 0.35. And so that's in quadrant 4, right? That gives me this picture down here. That's negative 0.34. But what I need to do first is to get a positive coterminal angle. So to do that, I do 2 pi plus a negative 0.34. And for that, my calculator gives me 5.93, and so that's 5.93 radians. Alright, well, how do I get this second angle here? Well, that is, instead of 180, I use pi, and that's minus a negative 0.34, or you add the 0.34 to pi, and for that, I get 3.49. So x is equal to 3.49, or 5.93. And both of those are between 0 and 2 pi, right? That's another reason why I had to find the positive coterminal angle for negative 0.34 radians. Alright, I am going to move on to cosine and tangent in the next video.